And we're live, and we're live. This is the Age of Antiquity map. This is mapping and movie madness with Jack. I don't know how much we're going to talk about movies tonight, but we do have the very special guest, Jack Cole. Hey, Jack.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I am I am well. No, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And if you've not watched the episodes before, this is the Age of Antiquity. I did work on it quite a little bit off camera, which is why it's looking way more complete than usual. Jack and I are just going to hang out. We're going to see where the conversation goes as I draw. And we're going to be doing this for about an hour and a half. If you're watching this video after the fact, thank you. Love you. So Jack, what we were talking about just before the stream started. So the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, and Egyptology, honestly, in general. I'm a history nut. We all know that. I really do love my history. But Egypt is an area that I've actually not spent a lot of effort and time. And now I'm going to be running a Call of Cthulhu game. I started to realize that I was reading certain things in the book that made me realize I didn't know anything about it. Like, I didn't understand. Obviously, I knew that there were 3 pyramids, but I didn't know where the Sphinx was in relationship to the pyramids. I didn't know what else was around. They talk, in the book in terms of, finding, for the sake of argument, a tomb or something nearby. I'm like, how do you just find a tomb? What do you mean you just find a tomb? And that's what spurred me to start looking into it more. And that is what started the rabbit hole for me. It was just trying to understand, honestly, the Giza Plateau. That's where it started.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where there are people that they have their entirety of their schooling, well, their advanced schooling, is focused solely on Egypt, and that's it. It's like that is, they are Egyptologists. That is their specialty. Just researching and finding out what they can on the area in Egypt. It really is fascinating stuff. Like we were talking about before the stream started. I have very limited knowledge of the subject myself. I'm not. I enjoy history, but I'm not like a buff like you are. I don't go out of my way to read up on things and watch documentaries on the topics, or read books about it. But I know when I was younger, I was really big into it, into Egypt specifically. I was a really big fan, and I think what it was, now that I'm looking at it now, I'm trying to having a hindsight 2020 realization now that I'm an adult, is I think what I liked more about the aspect of Egypt were the myths and legends. I think that's what probably intrigued me the most, and their gods and the pantheon, that type of thing. Because if I try to track my interest in history and cultures throughout my education and my then personal activities, it does seem to be that it's the mythology and the lore that seem to grab my attention more. So that's probably why. But I love the fact that you've taken this leap into learning more about Egypt because of a gaming experience that you're going to be presenting to us. I find that fantastic.
Well, and I think too. I mean, I think you kind of have to when you're running a game. I think you need to be able to picture the setting, because you need to be able to describe it, and I don't think that is a problem for the most part. But there was just the thought of you, let's say, going into a pyramid. I didn't actually honestly understand the layout of, let's say, the Great Pyramid. I didn't understand that. I do now because I've researched it. But I think if you go to run a game, I think as a GM you have to try to know exactly. You have to be able to picture it in your head, right? And I would have just been making shit up. Hey, Forrest, good to see you. Good evening.
Right. No, exactly, and I think a lot goes to a lot goes into that for a lot of things. I have needed to use in my mind real world places that I've seen or experienced in order to, since I primarily run Shadowrun, this, your viewers might not, but since I primarily run Shadowrun, which is more, modern, even though it does take place in the future, and it's kind of like the, this dystopian, cyberpunk future, it's still basically our world, and so I take real world locations that I've been to, whether it be, buildings or fast food places or shopping malls or what have you, and I'm able to describe what I'm seeing because that's what I'm familiar with. But yeah, if you're doing a book that takes place 100 years ago, and your characters are going to be going to Egypt and they're going to be going into the ruins there, it's like, yeah, if you yourself haven't been there, you need to go, okay, I need to read and watch things that will show me this, because I have no idea what the hell I'm describing.
I think that's 100% true. Like, if you're doing like a Shadowrun game, you can draw upon locations you've been and seen. I mean, I think I've even I've described in one game, but it wasn't Shadowrun because I've not run a Shadowrun. But I described actually a big bank's headquarters that I've been to, and I described that as the ground floor because that's what I could picture. And I tell you what, if I had described the interior of, let's say, the Great Pyramid to you guys, I would have put hieroglyphics on the walls. I just would have done it. There are no hieroglyphics on the walls of the Great Pyramid. Now, that's a small detail. I don't think, anyone would necessarily have picked up on that. But I would have been wrong. And that was the main incentive for, getting my learn on.
Right, exactly. I always remember you once telling me that once it was actually a Dungeons and Dragons game you were GMing for, and the players went into a house. I don't remember the context of it because it was before I had joined the gaming party at the time. And I always remember you telling me that you just made it fantasy, but you described the house that you were actually in. Because on the fly, you had to come up with a floor plan because the players were unexpectedly doing that. And you were like, okay, all right, I need a floor plan for a house. You know what? I'm just gonna make it this house that I'm in, and none of them picked up on it. I remember it was years later you had told me, yeah, I totally described Andrew's house, and nobody realized that I was literally describing Andrew's house.
Yeah, I actually
thought,
remember doing that one too, and no one twigged.
Forrest says, I think a lot of GMing is being confident about what you describe to the players. Knowing the history of something gives your setting a skeletal structure to build things upon. Exactly.
I think that's fair, and I'll go one step further, Forrest. I think that's exactly why So what's happening, Forrest, just so you have some context, is I'm running the Masks of Nyarlathotep game. It's a Call of Cthulhu game. It's a campaign. It's world spanning, and I've taken them through the Peru chapter, and I took them through New York, England. Now, of course, these things are either familiar to me, or I actually did a little bit of research for Peru, but now they're going to Egypt, and they're going to Cairo. And of course, I started gathering pictorial sort of references of the 1920s, early 20th century Egypt and Cairo in particular, which has started to feed fodder for me describing things. But then it started to go towards the pyramids and exploits there. And I realized I actually did not know where the pyramids were. And I know they're spread all over Egypt, but obviously the big three. I didn't know that there were actually some smaller pyramids next to the big pyramids. I didn't know that it was so close to Cairo. I didn't know the Sphinx was actually close to them. My geography was off. Everything was off. And I lacked, therefore, confidence. I completely lacked confidence in being able to describe or run a game in that environment, at all. I think you're on point. It is a confidence thing.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I mean, obviously this is at least a real world location you're able to draw from, which is fantastic. But I can only imagine that for some GMs, yeah, and maybe it's not a confidence thing. It also has to be able to be, I'm sure, once you have these skills, your level of confidence increases, so they probably are linked in some way. But being able to adapt and improvise and come up with things on the fly, because I can only imagine for people who don't have um, real world things to reference, such as Egypt, such as Peru. If you're doing a fantasy setting or a science fiction setting, and if the players go somewhere that the GM wasn't expecting, they have to be able to think on their feet of where they're going. Um, and hopefully they can imagine whatever setting it was the players decided to go to. If it was an unexpected detour, if the GM was thinking that they were going to go to place A and then they end up going to place B. Luckily, with the campaign that you're running, Alyssa, they're real world locations, and B, because this is a world hopping campaign, and our characters need to plan their trip based on the clues that they have and based on who's chasing them and that type of thing. We're able to give you far heads up of, okay, we're going to Egypt now, and so you're like, okay, good, I can now look into Egypt and feel confident about it, especially in this case where it's like I had very little knowledge. I could, like you said, you were gonna make it up that the pyramids had, if we had gone there and you'd done no research, we would have gone in, we would have been in a different geographical location around Cairo. The Sphinx would have been miles away, and there would have been hieroglyphics on the inside.
Well, and you know what would happen is like someone would say, okay, so how far away is the Sphinx? Like, but just thinking about, do I get on a tram? Am I getting a local cab, so to speak? Or is this out of town? Am I having a car? And I would honestly, I would have sat there and gone, I don't know, and I wouldn't have known. And so I definitely couldn't have approached the game with that level of ignorance. Definitely couldn't
You
have
couldn't
done
have
it.
been like, well, it's just right over there. it's look over that hill. It's right there. You don't have to get on a train. Hey, you getting out of here?
Well, and someone at the table too, was going to know a lot more than me, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's every chance that I think it's okay. I mean, it's a bad example if a player saying, "So where's the Sphinx?" Someone else at the table says, "Oh, it's right outside Cairo. We could probably just get a horse-drawn cab or something," and that would have been fine.
Right.
But in the instance where maybe I was describing, even honestly, if someone said, "Well, where's the bent pyramid?" and I didn't know, and I said, "Well, right outside Cairo," someone at the table will go, "No, it's not. No, it's not." And now you're just undermining your own game at that
Right.
point, and I did not want to do that.
True. True.
But honestly, part of it too is it's the little things. Like, what if the investigators say, "You know what? We're going to suggest that we meet at a local coffee shop, or a little, a smoking area, or whatever it is." I want to be able to describe it. I want to be able to imagine it
Right.
and be able to
Right.
describe it as you're walking in, what the environment is like, because that obviously makes it richer for the players. And that hence just doing research on all of the photographs and everything. Part of it is being able to describe.
Right. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, and I think all of the research that you've done, in finding, and and online, you've been posting these great photos that are helping, at least get me, and I think some of the other players that have seen it have been seeing them, giving us in the right mindset. But you yourself, kind of like what Rhodes was saying and what you were saying, getting yourself in the mindset and building your confidence, so you can describe. You can describe, when we're walking down a street, what we see and that what we hear, and if we if we need to go into perhaps a shadier more area of town, the fact that you have references for photographic and even, like, I'm sure you have historical accounts of people describing things, because just like in the game, obviously the game is inspired by real life, and in real life there so many people flocked to that area of the world at that time. That was the big age of of archaeology and discovery, and finding all out all these things down in Egypt. And so I can only imagine the treasure trove of knowledge that you've been able to uncover about with this type of thing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to do the same then on Singapore, won't I?
And Australia, and was Paris on our list? I don't know.
No, Paris was not.
Paris was not. No. Australia was, and Singapore was.
Australia and Singapore, those are the big
And
ones.
southern Africa, right? Somewhere in the
Oh,
south.
Africa, yes. Yes, 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 yes.
It's one of those weird things where it's like, well, you're in Egypt. Egypt's part of Africa. It's like, yes, but Egypt singularly, and then there were other places in Africa south of Egypt. But no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
What about you? Do you find that you have to do any research? Or what type of research do you have to do for things like Shadowrun?
Well, for Shadowrun, it is one of those things where, because it is more in a, relatively speaking, modern setting than it is for Egypt and that type of thing, and in the 1920s, or 30s, right? It's the 30s.
You're in the 20s.
We're in the 20s. Okay. But I definitely find it easier. And being that I live in the Pacific Northwest, obviously. Well, we do. My apologies. That was a weird statement. Only I do. You're in the weird pocket dimension that's in 2 rooms away. That's not the Pacific Northwest. But no, the obviously the Pacific Northwest. While we don't live in the Seattle area specifically, where Shadowrun, a lot of Shadowrun seems to take place in Seattle. At least while I'm not familiar with as much with Seattle, I at least know the type of city that we're talking about here. And I've been to big cities. I've been to, I grew up in the LA, Los Angeles area, and I've been to, other big cities. And so I'm familiar with how they kind of work and how they're kind of laid out, including, non-city center style suburbs that surround it, and the areas outside of the main parts of town. It's like I can visualize all of that, so I feel pretty confident describing that type of thing. But certain areas of the country, or should players ever have to go to other parts of the world, it definitely does help to do a little bit of research, just in case, from a visual perspective, how different it is, if anything. But I find it more, the kind of research I have to do is in more of a fictional sense, because I am obviously dealing with a fictionalized version of a fictionalized futuristic alternate reality of the world. I kind of have to get my head more wrapped around as to what the system that I'm running, how has it changed the world from what I know into this futuristic alternative reality. And I kind of have to get my head wrapped around more that type of thing, how laws work, how zoning works, because visually it's probably relatively the same, but now that the world is primarily it's controlled by mega corporations, and who owns what, and what governments are still around, and what power those governments do have in conjunction with the corporations, and so on and so forth. That's the type of thing that I more have to worry about. So it's a little different. I mean, it's the same. It's just mine's purely fiction, and if I can't find information out there, I now have to make it up, basically. So it's definitely different, for sure. Mine's more from a socio-political side of things, as opposed to a
Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Do you find that that's the type of thing that you're doing the most research on?
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Forrest also said that I should actually look at Boris Karloff's Mummy. And I don't think because it was based in 1932. Just to get in the head-to-head space, probably not a terrible idea. And I don't think I've ever seen that film.
I saw it in film class a long time ago. Boris Karloff, billed in the film just as Karloff. Yes. But yeah, we should totally watch it. Let's see. We could either rent it and watch it ourselves one evening, or if you want to, have it in the background while you're at work one day. It looks like it's free on Tubi. Or we can rent it on Amazon
No,
for
we'll
$4.
rent it. We'll rent it and watch it together, I think.
I'd be down.
Because it's not like I'm going to lift the plot out of it directly or anything.
Right. Let's see. Forrest says, I didn't see the whole film, but I believe most of it is set in Egypt. Yeah, it was 1932. And it takes place in 1921.
Okay.
And yeah, it's I don't know if they ever leave Egypt in the film. I think the whole thing takes place in Egypt.
That would actually be a good one to watch. I'm going to do that. I'm definitely going to do that.
Let's do it. Friday night, boom.
Done. Sorted.
I bet you we will. Let's see. Forrest says, I realized something while looking at the map. It's pointillism.
A what-ism?
Pointillism? Is she doing it? Pointillism?
What's
That's the one where you create like stuff with dots, like you create images with dots. Isn't that pointillism?
I was going to say, I don't know what pointillism is. No, is it really then? Is it the aspect that I'm just drawing these small little shapes, and from those shapes creating a whole?
I do not know.
This is the tedious work, by the way. Here, this is the stuff that's gonna take forever, but I did so much progress off camera. I am still hopeful that I will have the ink work done on that. Maybe mid-month. That's what I'm shooting for. Definitely this month. So next month is reserved for colouring, but I actually think we should be able to get this done a week or two before the end of the month. That is what I'm shooting for.
That's fantastic. Do we have an issue out there that I need to address?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think Ram is actually just playing on the rug.
Okay, good.
Forrest says, while the houses are more than just points from a distance, the houses become a texture. You're 100% right. I mean, look at that. Look at how much, like, this is just filled in. There's certain memories, too, I get, that come to me. Like, actually, a huge part of this was drawn while I was listening to an audiobook about Jack the Ripper, for example.
There you go.
And so I look at that, and those little memories come flooding back. But yes, I mean, it's definitely, and they are almost points, aren't they? And suddenly you start to see neighborhoods and roads taking shape.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Jack the Ripper. There's something that we need. We need more Jack the Ripper style stories in pop culture. What do we have
I
with-
thought you were going a different place with that.
Whoa! You think I was going to a dark place? Very dark place.
I was like, is Jack about to say that we need more Jack the Rippers? So sorry, you were going to say we need what more of that, like in fiction,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
pop
'cause,
culture,
like,
so to speak.
we have Oh, Forrest. I'm I'm Jack. I'm I'm Alyssa's partner. I'm her husband. We on Mondays I always join her for her streams, and yeah, that's me. I'm Jack. That's pretty much that's pretty much it. I
And Jack's a bit of a movie buff, like a big movie buff. So it's not unusual for us to end up talking about movies on a Monday when he hangs out.
Monday movie and mapping madness with Jack and Alyssa. Hello. Um, but yes, I'm a gamer and film lover, and I usually try to steer the conversation to movies only because Alyssa allows it. I'm sure she grumbles half the time when I do. It's like, oh god, here we go again.
It's just it's accidentally that's where they go. I mean, it's okay.
Um, but yeah, but like the Jack the Ripper, like we had time after time in the 70s, and we had From Hell, which is the adaptation from the graphic novel in the early 2000s, right? Early 2000s? Is that early 2000s? From Hell? Was that late 90s?
I've never even heard of it. What is it?
Oh, From Hell. It's 2001. It's a period piece that takes place in at during the Ripper murders, and Johnny Depp plays the investigator who's trying to find him and trying to stop him. Robbie Coltrane is his partner. Ian Holm is a physician who is like their expert that they go to talk to. Heather Graham plays Mary Kelly, the final victim, shall we call them? I believe.
So you want what more films like this?
I just like the mystery of it. I just like I just like I'm not saying I like it because people were actually murdered, obviously.
No. It's the mystery type
Yeah,
aspect that you like.
that mystery aspect of it. I like that type of thing. But I'm also into like true crime kind of stuff. Like I was a big fan of oh gosh, I can't even think of it now. Anyways, the shows about that where like people investigative, and they're trying to find like serial killers and that type of thing. I think there's even a show currently with Daniel Bruhl, that actor that we both like, the German actor who, and I think it's called The Alienist, and I think he plays like like a psychologist or a detective or somebody. But it's basically, and like there's like Luke Evans is in it, and Dakota Fanning is in it. It's a show where they're like the first people I think that are looking into serial killers, because before, back in the day, they didn't have a name for like serial killers. And I actually don't think they came up with names for the name serial killer until like maybe like the 60s, I think. But I like, we need more shows like that. We need more things like that. So I was just thinking of Jack the Ripper in general because you said you were reading the thing lately, and inspire your head is kind of there when you're doing these little streets and alleys and stuff.
No, I mean it's an interesting point because it makes me wonder. We've had this conversation before about the tastes of the movie going audience changing over time. We get less westerns nowadays, even though we do some, but they were at a height, in the 60s or so, right? It seemed like that's what it was about. Obviously, we've got a lot of superhero movies going up right now, but that's not going to last forever. It's going to change to something else. Have we, as an audience, got tired or bored of crime-solving mysteries?
And I have to say, I don't know if we have, because I know that, if I'm not mistaken, it is one of the most popular podcast genres out there, is like true crime. So I don't know if it has. I don't know if it's left us yet. But I hear you. Yeah, and I think westerns would be more like 40s and 50s. But no, I hear you exactly. I think some people. I actually heard an argument not too long ago of people saying that the superhero films have morphed into the fact that they're no longer a genre. It is because if you think about it, we have within the superhero film things, we have comedies, we have political thrillers, we have fantasy movies, we have sci-fi movies, we have you know, somebody I don't know if they mentioned dramas at all. I don't know if drama would be in there, but pretty soon we're going to have horror. You know, we've got a lot of horror things coming up. Somebody was making the argument that because they're making superheroes cover your standard film genres, unlike westerns, where a lot of westerns were, yeah, it's a comedy or yeah, it's a drama, but it's a western. That's it. That's just western, western, western. And I was like, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, because you know the topic, the thing that I was listening to was on the topic of, you know, are people getting tired of, so no, it was like, you know, when are people going to get tired of superhero movies because of, you know, all the shows that are coming out like on Disney Plus and, you know, other things of that nature. So I was like, I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that superheroes are, you know, films are branching out into these other genres because, you know, who's to say you can't have those types of, you know, comic books about those types of things. You know, they exist already on the printed page, so why not on the screen? And Forrest, yes, I am into sci-fi. I enjoy sci-fi very much. What about you, Alyssa? Are you getting tired of superheroes yet?
No, I'm not, but I always do find it quite fascinating how audience tastes change, evolve, and morph.
Mm-hmm.
Like, quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Right. Like the 80s had a lot of fantasy going on.
Yes, exactly. So while you'll still obviously get big fantasy movies nowadays, it's not to the same volume, you know?
Right.
And I would say that, you know, so some of my. I feel like there were a lot more mystery movies as well back in that type of era, because that was almost like the height of like your Poirot's and your Agatha Christie's and that type of thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to the point of making movies out of them. And of course there was that was it Murder on the Orient Express or something that was done
Right.
recently, but
Right.
that's the only one that I think of that nature. And I don't know, I get the impression that I felt like they were hoping to do more of them, but I don't know if they ever did.
Yeah, the sequel is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually done. But it was supposed to release last year, but with COVID, I think they pushed it back. Um,
So the first one must have done okay.
um, yeah, I'm trying to look it up. Death on the Nile. Let's see. It is currently set for February of next year. Um, it was originally supposed to come out of October of last year. Um, let's see. Let's go to the first one. I actually don't know how well the first one did. I mean, like you say, it had to have done pretty well. Yeah, actually, because they made the first film for not a lot of money. They made it for $55 million. So if you think with advertising and all that stuff, it probably jumped it up to, let's say, 75. It made 350.
See,
Basically.
350 is not bad.
Yeah,
That's not bad, especially for something that like had a budget of what, 50? You said.
yeah. And studios, they like films that aren't made for a lot, and they do like it when if they can get at least 4 times the amount back, including marketing. Um, so if you think about it, they would have needed to break. They only would have needed to break broke 300 for the studio to be happy, and it got, you know, 352. And so I think the studio was like, okay, we're pretty happy with this. Made over 4 times the budget with marketing. And so it looks like the second film was made for 90 million. Um,
And it's the Murder on the Nile.
and it's the Death on the Nile. Yeah,
Death on the Nile.
yeah.
Well, okay. Well, maybe we'll see a little uptick of mysteries.
There we go. I can dig it. I can dig it. Let's see. It's gonna be Kenneth Branagh returning as Poirot, also returning as director because he directed the first one. And it has, let's see, starring, Annette Bening, Russell Brand, Tom Bateman, Ali Fazal, Dawn French, I don't know who they are, Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Rose Leslie, the girl who played Ingrid in, Ygritte from Game of
Dawn
Thrones.
French, isn't she the woman from French and Saunders? The heavier
Uh,
set woman.
she is indeed, and she is indeed. She is indeed the heavier set woman of the French and Saunders. Good pull.
It's nice to see that she's still out there acting. That's awesome.
I don't think I've seen any of their sketch comedy show. Let's see.
No, well, and that wouldn't surprise me. It was a very English thing. But she also did the Vicar of Dibley or something.
That is indeed. I was gonna say she that's one of the things she's known for, playing the lead role as Geraldine Granger in The Vicar of Dibley, sitcom I've never heard of.
And I don't think I've watched any.
Huh.
It was never up my street.
Ran for 6 years. Huh.
Yeah, it was a popular one.
And then intermittently, oh wow, interesting. So they must have been doing a Red Dwarfs kind of thing. It ran from 94 to 2000, and then intermittently from 2004 to 2020. Holy scamoly!
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah. So intermittently for the next 16 years from that. Definitely a Red Dwarf scenario. Huh.
I wonder what she's looking like nowadays. Because she's been going a long time.
Yeah, and the picture on our wiki page is from 16 years ago, so that doesn't really work. Well, based on her picture from 15 years ago, she looks the same.
Really?
I don't know. She kind of looks.
Oh, that's awesome.
She
That's
kind of
awesome.
just looks like the picture. Like I'm looking at the picture of her from. It's like here she is from 2005, and now I'm looking at. I looked her up. I did Dawn French 2020. I'm like, yep, that's her. Okay. Oh,
Nice.
I'm guessing that's Saunders. She's standing with a tall blonde woman.
That will be Saunders. That will be Saunders. Hey, we got Rodney here, and we got Miss J here. Miss J knew about the Vicar of Dibley.
Hello.
Hey guys and girls.
Not much, man. Not much. How you doing?
So we were talking. We've been all over the place. We were talking about Egypt. We were talking about Boris Karloff for a while. But we got onto murder mysteries because I was talking about very briefly Jack the Ripper, and that got us onto murder mystery style films, and then that got us onto Murder on the Orient Express.
And then now the sequel, funnily enough, bringing it back to Egypt, Death on the Nile. Like what that? Didn't even twig when we started talking about it. It was actually a board game as well. We own it because I loved it. But Letters from Whitechapel, that board game where one player actually plays Jack the Ripper and the other players play the investigators trying to track him down. I dug that little board game.
And funny enough, I was thinking about that as I was listening to the audiobook, because of course I would. I mean, they're directly connected. I just remember it just not ending. It was one of those games that, and we've played a couple of games like that now, where if you can't get a bow around the ending point of it, I mean that's the main gripe of Monopoly, right? It could just go on and on and on. And I seem to remember while it was a lovely innocent little game. And it had a lovely little mechanic of trying to obviously sort of figure out where Jack the Ripper was at. It just never ended.
I think we perhaps have different memories of the same event because the game actually has a built-in timer. Because if Jack gets all of his kills on it, because each of the nights are played out, and then once the last murder is done, Jack wins.
Yeah,
He was like,
I don't remember the game ending at all.
hmm. I do remember we played it with it's a former friend of ours who we used to play with, and he was extremely critical of the game. And
Ah,
at least for me, from that perspective, it did feel like the game dragged because I was unhappy with the fact that he was very overly critical of it.
maybe that's
Um,
the vibe I'm remembering. Maybe that's exactly what I'm remembering.
but
Well, I'd give it another go. I think we still have it.
we do indeed, and it's I know it's a competitive game. I'm not the biggest fan of those, but that's one of those games where I would love to take it to the coast and play it
Yeah,
with a
but
group of people.
chasing someone is different than outright competing with someone.
True, true. And it is supposed to be like if you play with like six people, it's supposed to be five of them are working together to stop the one. So it's kind of a co-op game in that regard. It's kind of like um Descent into Darkness. The fantasy game. Everybody's playing against the dungeon master, so to speak. You know. Oh, Miss J saying that she's actually been sitting here listening to the conversation since Egypt.
I
God
saw
bless.
that comment of hers. Yeah.
But yeah, letters from Whitechapel, White Jack the Ripper. But going back to the Death on the Nile, Agatha Christie. Yeah, those are the types of things we need more. And Knives Out did it, sort of. I am. Knives Out's a film that I want to see again because I remember when you and I watched it. It didn't feel very mystery-y to me. It kind of seemed like it was just taking you along, and then it goes, and this is who did it, and this is what happens. And we were kind of like, okay. Like, at no point was it like a who done it, like, ooh, maybe it was this person, maybe it was this person. It's like, for the first time we saw it, I felt like it wasn't trying to ask those questions. It wasn't trying to get you, the viewer, to think who could have potentially done it. It felt like the story was just going, follow us on this tale and we'll tell you who did it. And there we go. It was very strange. But I've read and listened to people online that were like, ooh, it's like one of the best modern mysteries of the era. And I'm sitting there going, what? Was it a mystery? Was it really? So Knives Out's a one that I want to see again, just kind of see if I perhaps viewed it in the wrong light, or maybe it was more of a mystery than I initially thought.
I would give Knives Out another crack. I seem to remember I fell asleep the first time.
Okay, Forrest, you're saying that while Knives Out was great, you agree with me saying that it wasn't much of a mystery. Okay, okay, so that's at least three of us that are kind of in the same boat of maybe we need to see it again. I do remember enjoying the hell out of it, and it was all the performances were great. There were so many people in that movie. Yes, never listen to number one rule. Never read the comments. Never listen to people online. Exactly.
All right, put it on the list. Let's get it back in the mix.
I shall. I shall. Oh, hey, Jennifer Saunders is actually in Death in the Nile. both,
Oh, okay,
both French
okay.
and Saunders is in the movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's funny. Let's see. Emma Mackey, I don't know who that is. Sophie Okonedo, I don't know who that is. Letitia Wright. Oh, she played Shuri in Black Panther. She was T'Challa's sister. And Anne Turkle. I don't know who that is either. Okay, cool. So, Death in the Nile. So, February of next year. So, we got a ways.
Okay, we got a ways. Okay. Gotta look forward to that. I used to be a sucker for those movies.
Hmm. What kind of like the Poirot the Poirot stuff?
Yes.
Poirot?
Yeah, and there was an Agatha Christie series where they had an older woman as the main investigator, but then there was Poirot as well, and I loved Poirot. But it was part of English culture, that stuff.
And I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm assuming you mean like the David Suchet.
Yeah, with the little mustache.
With his mustache, yes. And like
yes.
With his balding hairline, yeah. Let's see. So Rodney says, I just started my. Oh, here we go. Mapping related. All right. Rodney says, I just finished my first city map and it was a lot bigger than I had planned. LOL. It's about 12 hours on it so far. I miss paper.
Nice. Nice.
Funnily enough, we actually know an artist online who he specifically bought a cover for his touchpad screen that he does his art on in order to give it a feel like it was still it was to protect the screen from scratches and that type of thing, but B, it gave a texture like he was still like doing stuff on like on a physical surface,
Yeah.
like a paper.
Yeah, Lloyd Metcalf, and he actually got it for his Wacom. So, and he live streamed him putting the protection down, and it was extremely nerve-wracking. And you could get different textures, and he got very coarse, and it literally sounded like sandpaper when he would rub his hands on it. But you can get them closer to actual paper, which that could be interesting, actually.
Let's see, The Wind-Up Girl. So Forrest Rhodes asked if I've ever read the novel The Wind-Up Girl. I have not.
Oh, I have decorations still turned off.
Looks like it was from about 10 years ago, 2009. Paolo Buccigalupi. Probably butchered that last name, I apologize. But it's a biopunk science fiction novel. Interesting.
What's biopunk?
So biopunk would be like if Shadowrun wasn't cyber, it wasn't mechanical. It's all just like biotechnology only. So organic
I gotcha.
things. Yeah, subgenre that focuses on biotechnology derived from cyberpunk, but focuses on the implications of biotechnology rather than mechanical cyberware and information technology. So synthetic biology.
And Hover Squid Games, thank you very, very much for the subscription. Very much appreciated.
Huzzah! See, Force says it's very good dystopian future. Corporations run the world. It's past peak oil and has incredible ideas. And then Miss J says The Wind-Up Girl is a great read, a bit scary. Well, shit on me and call me a cracker. I think I need to add that to my read list.
Hold on. What was that?
What? I said I need to add it to my read list.
Yeah, just before that. What did you say?
Sounds great, a bit scary. The idea is that oil is too expensive to drill, and solar power has failed, so the world reverts back to caloric energy, but with modern science. And it might give me some ideas for my game. I am dealing with I am starting to segue into more body horror and biological things, so that might work, actually. I am actually going to Amazon right now, and I think I will order myself a book.
Jack has been running his Shadowrun almost more like a Cthulhu. It's definitely dark. It's definitely got some horror elements, so that recommendation is on point for Jack.
Yeah, I haven't been able to go full Cthulhu yet, but I definitely have been sowing the seeds, and it's starting to ramp up. It's starting to the Cthulhu engine is starting to power up, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm very pleased. No, I'm sure it's not body horror, but I'm bringing body horror into my thing. So, but that doesn't mean that it can't inspire me, because I've got lots of things. I have lots of things going on, but I'm
a freak.
I am, well, yeah, but scary in the parts that there are parts. Scary as in there are parts that are extensions of what is happening in the real world. corporations owning the rights to plants' DNA. Yeah, yeah. Real world scary is almost the scariest because it's like, oh man, I see this really happening. Okay, so not spooky scary, but real world scary. I can dig it. I will add it to my cart. It's sad when the hardcover version of something is cheaper than the paperback. That's weird. There we go.
You prefer paperback, I take it?
They take up less space on the shelf, typically. Yeah. And I did find the latest edition that was cheaper than the hardcover. So. Yeah. Speaking of that, then, since we've segued this into dystopian and dark futures and sci-fi and messed up that kind of stuff, and we were talking about Jack the Ripper before, that is something that I want to bring up to the chat, but then also to you, Alyssa. What are the types of examples could be whether it be movies or books that you've read or games that you've played, whether they be tabletop games or what have you. But what's probably some of the best types or the best examples you can have of spookier, scary mystery, not horror, like I don't mean like slasher, like that kind of thing. Like I want like Jason, Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, that kind of crap. But more like real scary, whether it be an alternate like a dark future or serial killers or whatever. But what's like spooky things that you've either played in or experienced or read or what have you that you enjoy?
Well, actually, so I mean, I can answer that from the perspective of the spooky that I really enjoy, whether it be in book form or film form. And if it's done well, I guess it could be at a role-playing table, but I've yet to see it done well. Ghosts. Spirits. That's what gets me.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm in the camp of the argument of, yes, ghosts, the potential for ghosts and spirits is an actual possibility. While there may not be irrefutable evidence of such a thing, there has been enough out there, and enough real accounts, and enough stories that are more than just ooga booga stories to slasher gore. That I'm with you. I like from the film perspective. I like ghost stories that are spooky. They are the best in my opinion. I prefer them way over slasher films because the slasher films aren't scary. They're stupid and they're silly and gross. Yeah, there'll be jump scares because the guy with the machete jumped out of the closet and chopped a person, or they stabbed him, or what have you. Yeah, but that's different. Ghost stories, spirits, that shit is like a different kind of dread, like crawling into your chest as you're watching.
Well, and they can also have an element of what I like, obviously, to get out of a game, because I'm really into Call of Cthulhu, of the investigative phase. I always remember The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the creepiest movies I've ever watched. I would get goosebumps and cry just watching it from the adrenaline. but there was an investigation. Once he realized what was kind of going on, he wanted to understand why and what happened in the house. And how often do you get that, right? It's what happened in the house. Even the ring, I'll pick on the ring as an example. There was an investigation going on there. The woman was trying to figure out what happened to, was it Samara?
Yeah. Yeah, in the ring. Yeah. Sorry, for a second I went to the grudge, and I was
The
like,
ring,
yeah,
the ring.
yeah.
But
Yeah, no,
the grudge had a little bit of that investigating going on too
right,
in it.
right, exactly. I do find that that side of things pretty interesting as well. Funnily enough, while it is probably a little bit more in the slasher genre, the film for Silent Hill, while it wasn't the greatest and it didn't really follow the games, it's one of those video game adaptation movies that's not great. But there's elements about it that I enjoy. But one of the funny things that not one of the fun things I like about it is the Sean Bean character as the husband slash father character. He's outside of the Silent Hill parallel universe, and he's doing the investigative side of things. He's trying to figure out where this place is and what happened, the history behind, like, the place that burned down, and he's doing the investigative side of things, which is really, it's very fun. It's like there's elements about the movie that I really enjoy, but as a whole it was meh. It was one of those bad video game movies. Forrest says any Lovecraft short story is scary. There you go. Miss J says Dishonored. Indeed. Yeah. That's one of those scary, futuristic possibility, alternate reality. This is where the world could be going. Kind of one of those kind of tales. Forrest says, if I was going to say a novel I found the most scary would be Frank Herbert's Destination Void. I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up. And then Miss J then says, she generally avoids horror, ghosts, and zombie things, so she doesn't have very many examples. Okay. And Ronnie says a poltergeist. There you go. That's in the vein of like ghosts and stuff. I've lived in a house where strange things were heard by different people at different times. While we never had anything like poltergeist as much as chairs moving or people getting moved physically, that type of thing. I have lived in a house where it definitely had strange sounds going on. Strange as in you hear the front door open and footsteps coming down the wood floor hallway, and you go, "Hi, who's home?" And then the sound stops, and you look around the house, and there's nobody there but you. I've had that happen to me. We had a woman living with us in the little guest room, and the people who owned the house that we were renting from, the owners of the house who were never there, much like a horror movie. The garage was the only place that was still theirs. It was always locked up. We were never allowed into the garage. And the woman who was staying with us was staying in this side room that was connected to the house, but it was connected to this garage. And one time, one of my folks asked her about, like, if she's ever heard anything weird around the house. It was funny. It was one of those things where we all kind of came together and we realized we're each experiencing or hearing very strange things around the house. And when they asked her, have you ever experienced anything like this? Are we going crazy? What's going on? And she pretty much was like, I don't like the garage. And they were all like, why? And she was like, I don't want to talk about it, but it is not a good place. We were like, oh no. Oh no. That is not cool. That is kind of scary. What the hell's in the garage? So yeah, real world experience on that one. Yeah. You would have loved it, Alyssa.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps just listening to you. Yeah, no.
Yeah. I think the on this subject, I think what scares me, but it also fascinates me as well, is the kind of going to what we were talking about with Jack the Ripper and what we were talking about before with genres that don't exist anymore, is like true crime stuff, is stuff with like serial killers, because the the mind of a serial killer is scary beyond all imagine to me. I don't get that. Obviously, I'm not a crazy person, but stories about serial killers, that type of thing, I find them fascinating and also frightening. There's the really long film that's great, Zodiac, with Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. I've only ever seen it once, but it's Jake Gyllenhaal is the journalist who's looking into the Zodiac killer murders, and it's got investigation up the wazoo. I mean, the whole film is an investigation film. I think it's like 3.5 hours long. It's crazy, crazy long, and it takes place over like I think it takes place over like 5-10 years, like the entire film. Um, but it's all just like investigative journalism. But he's looking into a serial killer and these murders and the clues and the communication and all the stuff. And there's a couple of times in the film where you just get it's so tense, but it's not like it's an action movie, so it's not like there's like things going on. It's not like there's like it's just the things that you hear, the things that you read, and these things that they're doing, and it's so unnerving and creepy and stressful. It's great. I love it. That's the kind of stuff that I really that's the stuff that I enjoy. It's not that it necessarily scares me, because sometimes it does, but it's something that like that type of entertainment, that type of story would be cool. It'd be really hard to kind of introduce that to a tabletop game, I would think, and do it right, make it more psychological, unless you were playing a game that was like that, like all of the players are investigators or police or detectives and they're trying to track down a killer. I don't know, that would almost have to be like a convention game, like a one-off. You either catch them or you don't.
Yeah, I don't think you could do a campaign like that.
Right.
Maybe a series of related games.
Right. See, Forrest Rose says Destination Void is a sci-fi novel exploring AI. In the novel, the AI develops, but is unknown how it thinks, and has access to incredible power. The characters are at its mercy. Oh, indeed. Oh, indeed. Alex Wixon's here. Hello.
Hey, Alex. This is where we're at, in case anyone cares. And I'm just filling in this quilt. Getting pretty close. Although I am gonna have some buildings spill out outside the walls. We're motoring for the interior, for sure.
Nice.
So yeah, Jack. I think I like that type of movie and story as well, and I think you could totally run it as a game, hands down. But that's a game that is all. I don't want to say prop orientated. It doesn't have to be prop orientated unless it makes sense. But
having like clues and articles and that type of thing, you mean?
yes.
Right. And I think a game system like Call of Cthulhu would be one that you could probably shape a story around, because it's a little bit more flexible with the types of skills, because there's already a level of investigation going on with Call of Cthulhu games anyways. All you have to do is Alex saying she checked 30 minutes ago to see it, and YouTube said you weren't live. She glares at YouTube.
Yeah, would be good an hour. Sorry.
But being that Call of Cthulhu was already about investigation anyway, and I mean, sure, you're looking into things that you end up over time you realize relate to dark cults and entities and that type of thing. But the types of skills are there, and the type of almost like mindset of the mentality for the players is there of like doing more investigative things. So
Yeah, it doesn't have to end in cults and things like that after all, does it?
right, exactly. So it could be one of those things you could do a one-off adventure or something for that's about hunting and tracking a serial killer. That would be fun to do, actually, almost like a From Hell Call of Cthulhu convention game where you are the group of people trying to track down Jack the Ripper. Some players are detectives. Maybe one player is a physician expert. Like a doctor themselves. A couple other people, maybe some specialists or what have you, or just regular old people, but you're all banding together to try to find him. That'd be kind of fun. Combination of letters from Whitechapel and the From Hell graphic novel / movie. Boom. In a 4-hour convention adventure, we can do it. Forrest, I'm assuming this is in regards to Destination Void. I make the comparison to neural networks that are being used today. They are sort of a black box where things come in and out. Okay. Oh, but then you follow up with I think if you want to make a game like that, a big part of it is trying to understand how the killer thinks. That's the frightening part, the alienness of the killer. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why the show came out a few years ago and was really good. And it's one of those ones where, Alyssa, if you had an interest in watching it, I would watch it with you. I have watched it, but I've only seen it once, and I've been meaning to rewatch it. Mindhunter takes place in the 70s, and it's basically the first group of FBI agents that start trying to understand and catch serial killers.
Was it a film or a show?
It was a show. 2 seasons, I think.
And when did it come out?
Like 2017.
2017. Okay.
4 years ago. Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds familiar. Like, I've heard the name. I've definitely heard the name.
Yeah, it came out at the tail end of when I was first working from home before the pandemic.
Oh, you probably mentioned it. I'm familiar because you would have at least referenced this show in our conversations.
And I think at the time, part of the reason why I ended up watching it on my own is I think at the time I pitched it to you and you were kind of like, eh. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll just watch it on my own. And you were like, all right. It's like you were probably in a different mindset at the time, and so, but yeah, but it's like all of the characters in it, especially the serial killers and stuff, are all real world people. They, they're actual, and I do believe it's a fictionalized account of the actual thing that the actual behavioral science unit that the FBI created. But I believe all the characters are based on either individual people or they're amalgamations of a couple of different people. But yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, all of the people who play the serial killers are those are actually serial killers, and all what they say and what they do, if I'm not mistaken, are all based on actual information they have on these people. And it's oh Jesus. Alex Wixon says, the serial killer says, Nyarlathotep made me do it. Nyarlathotep, don't blame me. I had nothing to do with this time. I think definitely not my influence this time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at the point the dark god is going, yeah, that wasn't on me. You're just a crazy person. It's like, oh. You got to think, dark entities have got to be tired of being blamed for all the bad shit in the world. He's like, why doesn't anybody make a batch of cookies and be like, blessed be Nyarlathotep? Man, I could totally use a good cookie right now.
Where the hell is this conversation going?
I don't know. See, this is what happens when you let me talk continually, unchecked.
I'm gonna blame you and Alex Vixen.
And Nyarlathotep, don't forget that. Oh, indeed. Forest Roads, I don't know if you know this, but according to Amazon, my little thing here, Destination Void's actually the prequel novel to a book called The Pandora Sequence. I have no idea. I have never heard of that either. Like, I'd never heard of Destination Void, but supposedly it says Destination Void, the prequel to Pandora Sequence, and then immediately underneath it, the next book in my Amazon search is the Pandora Sequence, and I'm like, oh, okay. Miss J says, I am running away. Catch you another day.
See you, Miss J. Yeah, we're only going to be going for about 10 more minutes here, folks. Just so you know. I'm going to see if I can fill this little area in right there.
Ah, part of a 3-part series. Okay, that makes sense. Alex says, back to the investigation type game. That's how I ran most of my Spycraft campaign. There you go.
Spycraft. There you go. Good example.
Yeah, see, doing a game that's like a 70s espionage movie where there's a lot of investigating and there's a lot of tracking people down and there's a lot of watching and there's a lot of trying to figure out clues. It doesn't all need to be bang bang action. You need to. Now, what system is Spycraft? I know that's AEG, but I don't. Is it completely unique, or is it like something else? Like, is there another type of thing that uses Spycraft, or that Spycraft uses another system that I'd be familiar with? Because I've never actually played a Spycraft game. I would like to. I go to maybe if there's a Spycraft game at Gamehole Con this year, maybe I could jump on that.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Okay, thanks, Forrest. That it's written as a standalone. It can be read as a standalone and be done with it. Okay, got ya. I bet you it's one of those things though, where if you continue with the other books of the series, you could get more from it. But if you just read it as a standalone, you're good. Okay, cool. Spycraft is a 1960 is a 1960s source book. Nice. It has a 1960s source book. But it's a modified D20 system. Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Huh. Nice.
No, I don't.
I forgot there was an Altered Carbon RPG. Nice. Wonder how that is. And I wonder how they deal with. Sorry, this is going to a conversation Alyssa and I had that was not on stream. I wonder what the rules about hacking are in Altered Carbon.
Did Altered Carbon do hacking and stuff?
Yeah, I guess not really, did they? They didn't really. it seems like it'd be rife with it, being that everybody was had kind of like an augmented reality thing going on. But I guess now that you mention it, I don't think it did.
I don't think it would have to be a focus, right?
Right. Is there a difference between first edition Spycraft and the other Spycrafts, Alex Wixon?
Are you about to buy Spycraft?
No, I was just wondering. She says in the chat, I use Spycraft first edition. So I was just curious. Oh, is there a difference between first and the other editions? I have no idea how many editions there were for Spycraft. Altered Carbon has an RPG. Eclipse Phase is basically Altered Carbon, the game, just with a touch of Lovecraftian horror. I'm looking up Eclipse Phase.
I was going to say, that sounds interesting. And I'm at a stopping point too, so when we're done on this particular conversation, this is a good point for me to stop for the night.
Okay. Forrest says, I watched the first season of Altered Carbon. It's a little blurry. Wasn't there a digitalized girl that hacks the flying airship? Flying airship? What kind of airship would there be? Underwater airship? Wait a minute, that doesn't work. Yeah, we watched the first season as well. We started to watch the second season, but we lost interest. We weren't... half of the show we liked a lot. The other half of the show... And not even like first half, second half. It was like half of the story, half of the concept, half of the ideas that were coming at us plot-wise, we weren't the biggest fans of. The setting, I thought, was great.
I forgot that we were started watching the second one.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was Anthony Mackie, the Falcon
Right,
actor.
right.
It was the new sleeve for what's his name. So.
God, I forgot that. And we stopped just partway through.
Yeah, we were a couple episodes in, and we both were like, "This is so dumb. We're out." Because the first season ended, and we both were like, "This show got real dumb."
Yeah, there was such good concepts going on too. But definitely had a dose of the dumb.
That sucks, Alex. That sucks.
So I don't want to stop the conversation, but I am at a stopping point here. I am definitely going to pick this up again tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I might actually start working outside. I might start drawing fields and hills, olive groves, that type of thing. It'll be more interesting, and I'm going to finish the interior of the city, I think, off camera. I think I probably only have about 2 hours on the interior of the city. We may only have one more week on this map, and then it's going to go into colouring. We've been motoring on this thing. That makes me happy. There is another map that I'm working on that I can't tell anyone about, and I can't show you. My apologies. I'm working on that off camera as well. And then I've got the cosmology of RPGs, and that will be the focus on Wednesday. And who knows, maybe we'll even work on that one a little bit more often after this one is done. Let's see what happens. Maybe we'll even go back to Keystone Reforged and finish that one up. That would be fun. So maybe the weeks are going to be just us doing personal projects, which will mean it'll be the choiceless of projects. And then off camera I can work on this one where I've got a little bit of an NDA going on. So with that said, I am back tomorrow night for the Alex Vixens of the World, 5:30, my darling, Pacific Standard Time, some point in the morning, your time. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Really do appreciate it. I'm sure Jack does too.
Yes, indeed.
Until then, I'll be back tomorrow. Everyone have a great one. Alex, thank you for just catching it, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Much love to you all. And I will see you all tomorrow on the flip side. Good night, everyone.